Hold on a sec. Oh, sorry there. Because this is somewhat straightforward, I'm going to keep it to about 20 minutes total for the meeting presentation. I do have a couple of people kind of listening in and keeping an eye on the questions and the chat boxes and things like that. So if you do have some questions that you want to ask, please don't hesitate to do that. Just raise your hand and throw it out there for us, and then I'll attempt to address it for everybody. But real quickly, I wanted to do just a quick little intro or re-intro of our agency. We've gone through a little bit of a redesign of our website, and we've added a ton of new team members and affiliate members here. So we kind of have a new look and feel to our website, and where we're parking some information, which hopefully will be coming up very shortly here. So I can show you this. And then what we're going to get into here today, once we get things going here, is I'm going to show you guys where to go and find your model exchange notices, which I don't think anybody's missed that at this point, but then also just kind of go through the pages and make sure everybody knows how to go ahead and complete that information and how to get it out and what are some of the acceptable ways to get it out, and then just also a little bit of preparation as to what you might expect to come from getting that notice out. So here's kind of our little friendly new web page that talks about who we are, what we do. We have a list of all of our team members in the Who We Are, our About Us section. What we do, we get into all the services that we provide, which include now a ton of administrative services that we also add, in addition to the traditional employee benefits consulting and the individual insurance. And then we've added Benefits University, which is where we're basically parking all of these recorded webinars that we do and that we put on. You see some of them here. We have the exchange notice that I'm doing today, but we have an FMLA and employee benefit plan seminar as well, bullying and hostile work environment coming up as well. So just a resource for you guys, and we'd love to obviously have everybody use as much of that as they're comfortable with. But just to dive into the meat of the presentation here today, I'm talking about exchange notices for employers that have plans, that offer plans. And I'm assuming I looked over kind of the attendee list for this meeting here today, and it looked like just about everybody is with a larger employer that provides an insurance plan, or I'm assuming provides an insurance plan. So basically, if you're starting from scratch and you don't want to save the emails that you've been sent or whatever, you can go model exchange notice. You can put with plans. And here's where it's usually the top one on the list. There's a with plans notice and then a without plans notice, and they're slightly different. I'm pulling up the with plans notice because I feel like that's the one that's going to be most applicable to the people that we're talking here today. It also is the most difficult to complete from the standpoint of missing parts to it, because the exchange notice that doesn't have plans included is basically a shortened down version of the plan that does have plans, or the notice that does have plans. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty pulling this thing up here, but if you bear with me just 1 second, it'll be pulling up in here in a second. There's 3 pages to the notice with plans. There is a cover page notice. It's Part A, which we're going to see here in a second. And that's just providing general information to employees about what a health insurance marketplace or an exchange is. Here you go. I think you can see it a little bit better now. So what a general information, what an exchange marketplace is. Can I save money on my health insurance premiums in the marketplace? That might catch some people's eyes if they're tuning into this. Does employer coverage affect the eligibility and premium savings through the marketplace? And this is a very important thing, and this is something that I think people are going to need to kind of get their heads around. Is what you do as an employer impacts what your employees are able to do with respect to these exchanges and participating in them. So basically the answer is yes. If you get a health plan from your employees and it meets certain criteria, then you're not going to be eligible for a subsidized product on the exchange. And the basics of it are, it needs to be a plan that provides minimum value, affordable, essential coverage. And those things are all defined a little bit further. They put a little note here, which I think is interesting as well. It just says that if you purchase a plan through the marketplace, instead of your employer, you may lose the employer contribution if you get offered coverage that way. That's something interesting to note. Another note that they put in there is talks about the fact that you might still qualify for a subsidy on the exchange even if you your employer is offering affordable coverage, because affordability, as far as the employer is concerned, is 9.5% of your wages from that employer, meaning the employee can't charge you for employee-only premium more than 9.5% of your earnings. But if you have a spouse that doesn't work and a bunch of kids at home, then potentially you would be eligible for a subsidy, because the premium for you is not less than 9.5%, so there might be subsidies available too. That's something that people need to know. This is the first of the fields that you could customize in your plan, and the how can I get more information. And for more information, please check your summary plan description or contact, and you can put yourself, an internal representative of the company. This would be usually your plan, a plan leader or a group leader for your plan, or your plan administrator. And then they direct you to the healthcare.gov website for some information. The next section is Part B, and this is still, this first part at least is just the basic information that's also included on the plans, on the notice for companies that don't have plans provided. It's basic employer name, employer identification number, address, phone number, city, state, zip, who can we contact about this coverage, and phone number and email address, all very straightforward. The next section is a section that's included only for people who do provide plans. So this is basically blank if you don't provide plans. But if you provide a plan, you need to provide some details about the plan. So as an employer, we offer a health plan to all employees or some employees. If it's all employees, you just check the box and move on. If it's some employees, you need to define those eligible employees. And this is information that I probably would cut and paste right out of either a certificate of coverage or a summary plan description. Similarly, with respect to dependent coverage, we offer coverage. Eligible dependents are, and you define your eligible dependents, again, cut and pasted from an SPD, or we do not provide coverage. And this is something that we're starting to see a little bit more now than we kind of had in the past, is employers passing on even offering access to dependent coverage. So that's something that you need to specify here. And then lastly, and this is probably the one that trips up everybody the most, is if checked, this coverage meets the minimum value standard, and the cost of this coverage to you is intended to be affordable based on employee wages. So this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where it meets the affordability definition from the employer's perspective, but they have this little addendum here down at the bottom where they say even if your employer intends to provide coverage that's affordable, you still may be eligible for premium discounts through the marketplace. So they're basically telling everybody that you employ to, that they may be eligible for subsidies, and that they should go check it out and figure it out on their own. I'm going to show you how to kind of get to a comfort level on whether you should check this box or not. We've been kind of on a holding pattern, waiting for the carriers to come in and kind of certify or bless or give a minimum actuarial value or an actuarial value to their plans. And we would be able to just look at that and see, okay, that's above 60%, which is the minimum value that we need, so we can check the box and move on and be comfortable about this. The carriers originally promised that information by the end of July, and then we're getting just a bunch of mixed signals. We even had a little bit of a flurry from one of the major carriers saying that they weren't going to do this at all because they were advised by their legal department that they shouldn't. They've backed off of that and said that they will be providing certifications, but we're on, it's the 10th of September right now. These notices need to be out by the 1st, and this is the kind of information we would have expected a long time. Now, there's a ton of moving parts going on in this world that we live in right now with health reform, so that's getting some of the credit for some of these delays, I suppose. But how you can figure out, absent your carrier certifying your plan, whether your plan is a minimum value plan or not, again, you go to our trusted friend Google here, if you haven't gotten this sent to you by someone else, and type in minimum value calculator. And this link here is a link to an Excel spreadsheet, which I opened up down here. And I'm going to open up for you guys as well. And I'm going to just kind of real quickly go through the components of this and show you how this calculation is made. Now, I did a little bit of a test this morning with accessing all of these sites, and everything's running at a ridiculously slow speed right now. So I'm not sure if that means that there's just more people than ever accessing this, and that's why we're having troubles here. But you can see here, I'm sitting here clicking on this link, and it's giving me some problems opening it up, and I think that has something to do with this the influx of activity here. But okay, here's what the Excel spreadsheet looks at like when you open it up. And here's some of the parameters, and it actually does let you get pretty detailed about the specifics of a plan. And I'm going to just kind of go real quickly through this and show you how the actuarial value calculates. I just did one for a client of ours this morning. So first you have your input parameters, and there is a user guide tab with detailed instructions on what all these terms mean. But most of them are things that you should be pretty well familiar with as far as concepts. So it asks you, is it using an integrated medical and drug deductible? So this is something you typically see with your high deductible health plans. They'll have an integrated plan. So just since the box is checked already and these others aren't, I'm going to go ahead and just do a minimum value calculation on one of these plans. And let's make an assumption that an employer kicks in $500 to an HSA on behalf of an employer, and they have a combined drug and medical deductible of $2,500. They have an 80% coinsurance, and it's up to $3,500, say, as an out-of-pocket maximum. You go down the list of your benefits here, and it's asking, is this subject to the deductible? Is it subject to coinsurance? And it asks that for all of the different plans here. So high deductible plans are typically your primary care services and your specialist visits, and really just about anything subject to the deductible. And then to coinsurance, obviously that's except the preventative care and screenings, which are 100% paid and covered at 100% for everybody. But you see on your copay plans possibly some copays for outpatient procedures or copays for office visits, certainly copays for prescription drugs. You'd see that as well. But in these types of plans, we see generally everything subject to the deductible. There might be, this is a common Blue Cross plan, might be 100 or 80% coverage on generics. Excuse me, I'm sorry, this is a copay here. 80% coverage on generics, 60% on other tiers. So we'll punch that in with these basic parameters here. This gives you the ability to say if they limit your amount of copays for prescriptions or specialty prescriptions, maximum days of charging copays, that type of thing. You can calculate as well, but you just hit the calculation button. It does a little calculation away, and this says your actuarial value for this plan with these parameters is 78.5%. If you take away the HSA funding and you do a recalculation, it goes down to 72.2%. If your deductible is up at $3,000 instead of $2,500, it's going to drop it even further. So if you have a dual option plan, which is all it kind of gives you the ability to do here, you can put your plan details for one plan here and your plan details for the other plan here, and they don't weight this based on your participation. They don't consider things like the cost of the plans. They don't ask any of that information. It's purely based on the benefits offered, and they come up with an actuarial value that's a blended actuarial value here. And all we're looking for is a number above 60. And my advice to folks would be, when you're going back to this form here and you're saying, okay, do I check this box? If I'm above 60, I'd feel pretty comfortable checking that box even without a carrier blessing that. And if you're below 60 and you're not planning on making some changes or definitively making some changes in the new year that are going to get you above that, then you might want to think about not checking that box. The third page of this form, I'm advising everyone to just ignore. It is a forward-looking deal where you say, is this the type of coverage that you're going to be offering in the future? And it's an optional page, so I feel like it's hard to figure out what we're going to do in the next 3 months, much less the next year. So since it's not required of us, I'm not recommending that anybody include this. But this is a notice that each and every employer of every size needs to get out by October 1st. Some of the questions that bubble up as a result of this relate to the subsidy. And I just want to give you guys another resource. Kaiser Subsidy Calculator is a place that I end up spending a fair amount of my time, and that's just to kind of get a feel for how these subsidies work and what they drive. So I'll just show you just the first thing I did when I went and looked at one of these subsidy calculators is I tried to figure out my existing situation. So just using round figures for incomes, I'll use a $60,000 income, and I'm going to just say that employer coverage is not available. I'm going to say I have 5 people in my family, which I do. I have 2 adults above 21, myself, 42 actually, 43 next month, but I'll go for 42, and my wife is 20, but I'm just kidding about that. She's 40. And then we have 3 children that are under 5 years old. None of them use tobacco, and I submit there, and it says, okay, if I make $60,000 a year and I have 5 people in my family, as described there, I am eligible for a subsidy of up to $9,500. They're assuming my premium is going to be about $1,307 for the year. So at $60,000 in earnings, which is a pretty good chunk of change, I'm eligible for almost a $9,500 premium subsidy. Some other things that I thought were kind of interesting when you play with this, and this is something I would encourage you to do because of just what I'm about to show you. Say I made $110,000 a year. That's a lot of money, right? I make $110,000 a year. I'm still subject, or I'm still eligible for a $3,200 subsidy. Now, that's probably not going to eclipse what my employer would offer me in a traditional setting, employer contribution setting, but it's a lot of money. And you know, if I'm a business that doesn't provide coverage, and that's just kind of how I do things, then you know that's a pretty big deal. The more interesting thing I thought about this was if I made it, instead of $110,000, I made $111,000. Well, then I'm all of a sudden over the magic 400% of poverty line, and I lose my $3,500-ish subsidy. So that's the part that I think that'd be neat for an employer to kind of tune into, is just where these breakpoints are. You know, at what point does a salary increase cost you money? You know, and in this case, if I'm making $110,000 a year and I get a raise to $111,000 a year, I lose $3,500 worth of benefits. So I'm kind of going in the direction that I don't necessarily want to go. And I just think that this is something that most employers haven't been tuned into. I think most employers generally think, you know, most working people aren't going to qualify for subsidies or Medicaid or anything like that. Well, Medicaid's been expanded. I guess technically not in Louisiana yet because we're pushing back on the Medicaid expansion, but globally the Medicare or the Medicaid rate is up to 133% of the poverty line versus about 15-20% now. So that's a big expansion of what would be a Medicaid eligible person. So a lot more people could potentially get caught up there, but then you're going to 400% of the poverty line, which you know, even on a single person is up around $45,000 or so as far as income that they can earn on their own as a single person and still qualify for a subsidy. So, you know, just like I did this example with my family of 5, if you give somebody who's a single person making $44,000 a raise to $45,000, I'm not exactly sure that that's the break point, but if you do that, you know, that could cost that person quite a bit of money. As a matter of fact, why don't I go ahead and just do that real quickly. $44,000, 1 person in the family, 1 adult, still me, no kids, submit. Okay. So in that situation, I'm not getting a subsidy because I'm below the line here. Let's see. What if I was making $40,000? If I was making $40,000, I'd get up to a $296 subsidy. So that's at 348% of the poverty line. So playing with these things, I think, is important. Believe it or not, the older you are, the more your cost of insurance is, so the higher your subsidy will be. So the same income level, this person gets, because they are 63, make the same amount as I do at $40,000, they get a $5,100 subsidy. So their cost is capped at the same. So I guess, like I said, you don't need to master this information, but you need to be aware of it and be aware of the impact of things, because you offering coverage precludes employees from being able to participate in this, and especially when you start looking at family costs, that could get to be pretty substantial. So I told you I'd keep it nice and short for you guys. Hopefully I was able to do that. If you have any questions on any of these forms, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can help you get through these and make sure that you feel comfortable with this. We can help you through these minimum value calculators. if you want to go through that process to just kind of double check. I would certainly recommend doing that before checking the box and sending the notice out. I have a question here asking what is the best way to distribute these plans. The ways that they legally, or that they tell you to do this, is by first-class mail or electronically. And I'm actually put up or send around to you guys the link for the proper electronic distribution of these plans. There's some parameters around that, like there's got to be secure emails and return receipts, and you have to make accommodations for people who don't have access to emails, but it is allowed to distribute those plans electronically. I don't think they're okay with you just posting up on a company web page. It has to be something that can be verified as received. And they don't specifically say whether you can just pass these things around or not. I guess everybody just kind of assumes that you could, but I've seen blogs, posts, and articles and things like that on both sides of that. I've seen some that say definitively you can, and I've seen some that they say because it isn't referenced that you can, that you can't. And that doesn't mean make a whole lot of sense to me, but I would say if you're distributing by hand that you should get some kind of a sign-off form if you do that. Let's see, the tax credit received if person is eligible for it. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me open this up a little bit more here. I can't quite see this entire question. Let's see. Okay, annual income on Kaiser calculated as household income. Also, how is the tax credit received if a person is eligible for it? The way the tax credit is received if a person is eligible is the credit is paid to the insurance company from the federal government. So you go through these calculators and you go through this online exchange and you put in your income, and in this first year you're basically just attesting to the fact that your income is what you're saying it is. And in future years they're saying that they're going to have a link up where they're going to be able to pull from the IRS website this information and not have to just take you on your word. But for now, they're kind of taking you on your word this first year, and that's how they're assessing what your income is. And the thought process being is that they can kind of square it up when they get actual reported income when that comes in. But the way it actually logistically works is the federal government, based on what you say you're eligible for, will subsidize your premium directly to the insurance company. So the insurance company takes your portion of the unsubsidized premium and what they get from the federal government, and they mark you as paid, basically. And that's what kind of gets settled up in the future. If you say you make more than you actually make, then you're entitled to more of a reimbursement. If you say you make less than you actually end up making, then the federal government is either due that money back or it'll be offset on future payments. Okay, and the annual income used on the Kaiser deal is based on annual income. That's a question that we have here. Best way to distribute. If first class, should we do certified mail? I've not seen anybody doing certified mail on this. First class seems to fit the bill. That's what's actually specifically referenced in the law. Or in the clarifications that they've put out. So first-class mail should do it without being certified. That's a good question. Annual income is salary plus bonus. That's another question that we just got. It's going to be your taxable income. So yeah, it's going to be your reported taxable income, bonuses included, when it all gets squared up. Now, you know, if bonuses are something that's subjective from year to year, then you're going to have to take your best guess at it, but it will get squared up based on actual adjusted gross income. Okay, and let's see, for annual income, are they talking adjusted gross income? Yes, adjusted gross income is the income figure that they're using. That's a good question. Not taxable income. It's modified adjusted gross is actually technically what it is. So let's see. Let's see if we had any kind of poll questions or anything like that. That looks to be all the stated questions. I'm recording this presentation right now, and I am going to post it. And I can also send it with a couple of these links to the people who have attended today. if that would be something that would be well received. I'm also going to post it up on our Benefits University site as well, so that people can review it or forward it along to whoever they would like to. And we're probably going to be putting one of these together kind of in a dumbed-down version that's going to be more something that employees can share as well, so, or employees can pass around. So, we're just trying to get, help you guys get the word out and fend off any questions you have, but we know, people, employees in particular, will tend to pin you down and ask you a question in the craziest of places. So having just a general idea and knowledge and working knowledge of how all of these things kind of work together is something that will be helpful for you guys. So looks like we don't have any additional questions, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. Thank you guys all very much for attending today. I really appreciate it.